Hi there, welcome to today's Relationship Live, where we are talking all things about the ISTJ. My name is Heather Dranitsaris-Hilliard, and I'm so excited to be coming to you live on the Facebook group, Power Up Your Innate Potential, or on LinkedIn, or you may be catching us on our replay on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you've been following along with our series over the course of February, which we've labeled Relationship Empowerment Month. We're talking about everything you need to know about understanding the different relationship styles of the 16 personality types, or the 8 striving styles, based on the system that we work with, the Striving Styles Personality System. Now, ISTJs, let's go. Let's talk about them. If you're in a relationship with an ISTJ, chances are at some point you realized you were not going to be having those deep, meaningful conversations that you were looking forward to. Now, I bet you might have even thought that they were going to smile a little bit more often, given how much you do to make them happy. But now that you've been with them, you know that what you see is absolutely what you get. The joys of the ISTJ, right? Rock solid, salt of the earth folks. We refer to them as the stabilizer in the Striving Styles Personality System. And you know that because what you see is what you get, unless you push, prod, maybe even sometimes bully them into having a conversation about their feelings or why it was maybe that they did what they did, you really don't get that kind of engagement from them. And sometimes it seems that these folks are just really content to do the same things that they always do, never straying from their routine, right? It's sort of they're on their path. So, one foot in front of the other, doing the same things that they've always done. And that meets their need for security in all things in their life. That's what makes them feel psychologically safe, right? It's like that is them, right? That's describing them to the T. And probably if you are in a relationship with an ISTJ, you might be the one who's having issues because you're bored doing the same thing over and over again, because many of the other personality types in their relationship style, they don't have that same orientation. And so despite you pushing them to come up with new ideas, you still get that deer in the headlight stare that means, oh no, what have I done wrong now, right? If you're in a relationship with the ISTJ, you're not alone, because this is actually one of the most common personality types that are out there, representing 11% of the general population, right? By some of the statistics. These people are absolutely the pillars of society. They do what is expected of them. They stay committed to their partner despite how unhappy even they might be. And because they don't prioritize being happy, well, they try and make their partner happy instead, right? So a few things that you should know about the ISTJ before I drop into some real clear specifics about them from a relationship perspective. ISTJ, so this is the introverted sensing function, is the predominant part of their brain from which they move into their life. That is that need to be secure, right? So with their introverted nature, what they're doing is often retreating into their inner world. We actually refer to it as their inner cave, and that allows them to escape the demands of the outside world. Now, this is a place where they can recharge their energy, they can reflect, they can contemplate, they can be on their own, right? Their time alone is that refuge for them, where they can really get connected around their thoughts and their emotions, but most importantly, find that peace and sense of security that's so important to them. For the ISTJs, sort of think of this inner cave as their safe haven, where they can truly be their authentic selves, right? Free from the judgments and the demands that others might place on them. They value their solitude, and it is such an integral part of their well-being. So in relationships, what ends up happening is they will retreat to that inner cave as a means of coping with challenges and difficulties that make them feel insecure or unsafe, right? Stabilizers, these ISTJ folks, they have a hard time saying no, right? And setting boundaries, because they want to do everything they can in their power for those they love, right? A really strong sense of duty here. However, this selflessness can often lead to them being taken for granted and not really receiving the appreciation that they deserve. And what can end up happening here is that they can feel resentful. That can lead them to withdrawing and becoming unavailable in the relationship. And they do get upset when other people don't live up to their commitments, right? So again, that predictability, that stability that they're looking for. So when other folks are habitually late, cancel plans, or don't follow through on what was promised. I always remember my father, my adoptive father, when I was growing up, he was an ISTJ, and always on time. He was always on time. He was always early, military precise when it came to managing himself and his schedule. And my mother, that I grew up with as an INFP, so artist, never ever on time. And he would leave the house on the time that he had told her that they had to leave. He would leave the house and he would go sit in the car and he would honk the horn at her as though that would sort of make her speed up. But he had to leave the house. He couldn't stay in there with her being late. So it allowed him to sort of retreat and have some separation, but extremely frustrating, right? When others just don't follow through on what they've promised or don't hold up their end of the bargain, right? They can quietly disapprove and may become, like in the case of my father, more passive aggressive when they see others, again, especially their partner not fulfilling those obligations. They, or if they're not feeling personally like they're being affirmed or acknowledged for the role that they're playing within that relationship. They don't need a lot, ISTJs, but they do need to know that their efforts and their contributions are appreciated by their partner, by their family, by others with whom they are in a relationship. A simple thank you to the ISTJ really goes a long way in making them feel valued and fulfilled within the relationship. Now, while they might not be the most expressive individuals, especially when we compare them to the rest of the personality types of the striving styles, their actions really do reflect their deep love and affection for those around them. We'll often see ISTJs in lifetime relationships with friends and with other people, not just their partners, but they're the ones that create deep bonds and they hold those bonds. They are traditional and conservative at heart, right? So they're not ones to question the past, nor do they entertain thoughts about doing things differently. So for them, upholding family values and traditions really is a labor of love, and they consider it a privilege to do so. The comfort and stability that they bring to those they care for is immeasurable. And so that's, again, that rock solid, like what you see is what you get, salt of the earth. These are the pillars of society, as we say with the ISTJs, or the stabilizers. When an ISTJ is in a relationship with a like type partner, it works really, really well. The challenge comes is when they're in a relationship with a partner who has a need for change, for growth, for excitement, for diversity, for not going to the same place year after year after year for the same holiday, right? Now, there are so many wonderful things to be said about the ISTJs, the stabilizers. And so if you want to know more, you want to learn more about this particular personality type and how they are in relationships, really encourage you to check out our videos and our interpretations all around the ISTJ. And in also, the relationship report for the ISTJ that will give you even more insights into how to make the most out of your relationship with an ISTJ. You can find all of those things at our website, nowfixyourrelationship.com. Or also, we've got lots of great content on our YouTube channel, Dranitsaris-Hilliard, as well. So let's talk a little bit about how the ISTJ bonds, because that's obviously a really important aspect of the relationship style. They do have an undeveloped sense of themselves in their relationship. And so because of that, they form a dominant submissive bond with themselves in the submissive role. So think follower, right? They're the doer, they're the follower within the relationship. And this creates a little bit of a double-edged challenge for them. On the one hand, if they become too open and engaged with their partner, they actually may feel overwhelmed and suffocated in the relationship. But on the other hand, if they retreat too much into their own inner world or into their cave, they may become isolated and disconnected from that relationship. So, living in the same house, going through the motions, but not really in that close connection of the relationship. So this pattern of, this pattern of relating of the ISTJ is really characterized by submission and compliance, with a deep-seated fear of being invaded or intruded upon by the other person, right? If you're sort of too much, the partner is too much out into them and into their space. the ISTJs are always trying to strike a really delicate balance between intimacy and independence, trying to find that middle ground for them where they feel psychologically safe and secure without losing their sense of self. And so if you're in a relationship with them, these are the things that you're going to be aware of. It's sort of you're in, you're out, you have to lead them and guide them, but not being, overly intrusive or overly emotional in that approach, right? But they definitely need to be led. ISTJs aren't typically oriented towards personal development, and nor do they see the need to challenge the status quo of a relationship. So there really is a simplicity almost to their approach to what they do with their relationships. Their thinking kind of goes something like this. Like, we were happy at the start of the relationship, so we're just going to keep being happy as long as we don't talk about our feelings or do anything to change the status quo of the relationship. It's rare for them to initiate a conversation with their partner by saying something like, hey, let's talk about our relationship. To them, there is nothing to talk about as the relationship simply exists. And if both partners continue to do what's expected of them, everyone will survive. At work, if they're in a leadership role, their thinking is somewhat the same. If employees are doing things correctly, I shouldn't have to say anything. They should know their job, and I shouldn't need to tell them what to do. So you see, what goes on in this dynamic with the bonding, and romance and intimacy really don't come naturally for the ISTJ. They, approach their romantic relationships with more of a sense of responsibility, commitment. We use that word duty a lot when it comes to the ISTJ. And they feel more at ease in the relationship if they have a really clear role to play. So think about, I know these are my tasks, and I know I take care of these things for the household and for the relationship. And they have a structured process that they follow with you to really build that relationship bond. When they're in a romantic relationship, they're really going to focus on creating routines and regularly scheduled activities. And physical intimacy may even become a routine aspect of the relationship, but it might lack the romantic and emotional intensity that was present during the courting phase. So think about stabilizers, right? Just not going in perhaps always to that being really expressive about their feelings, might not express their feelings frequently. And they often don't say, I love you after that initial courtship period, right? For them, expressing their emotions really might not be necessary, and they might feel uncomfortable if there's a lot of demand placed on them for more emotional expression from their partner. And this can actually cause them to pull away and create distance in the relationship. So while the partner's coming at them saying, I want more emotional expression and I want more emotional engagement, it actually causes them to withdraw from the relationship. So it's counter to what it is that their partner's trying to get from them. So as we've been talking about all of the styles, each one of them has a couple of really key challenges. So if you're in a relationship with them, I want you to understand what those challenges are. You're probably living and experiencing them, but most importantly, tips to deal with it. If you're an ISTJ, just having awareness about the challenges that your personality style, because of its relationship style and approach to relationships, these are some of the challenges that your partner's likely to encounter, and just give you some thought to how you might want to consider that behavior and that impact that you're having so that you can fix and empower up your relationship. Challenge number one, ISTJs, they don't like change, right? It's why we call them stabilizers, right? In the striving style system, is they like that stability, that predictability in their experiential world. And for stabilizers, having to step out of their comfort zone and embrace change can be an absolutely terrifying experience. Their predominant need to be secure is threatened during change, especially when they have to do something new or go somewhere new or do something where the rules and the structure of it isn't clear to them. The thought of not knowing what to expect, okay, or the possibility of things not going as planned or them not getting it right creates feelings of anxiety and unease. And you'll see this in your relationship with them, where you ask them to do something different, they either won't do it, or they'll ask you questions and look for direction from you before they move into that activity. They are very much creatures of habit and routine, and any deviation from that norm can be stress producing for them. They don't like to shake things up, and whether it might be moving to a new house or changing jobs or even trying a different grocery store, different drive path home. And when loved ones come to them and suggest new things, the stabilizer may initially resist, right? So that's the no that comes out of it. Wondering, why in the world would you want to do anything different? We've always gone there. We've always had a great experience. Why would we possibly want to travel somewhere else or eat somewhere else or whatever it might be? Now, here's what's really important, though, to know about the ISTJ. With a bit of information and a bit of time for them to consider, they can eventually come around, right? And so that's why it's really important if you're in a relationship with them not to react to that initial resistance that you're getting. Now, although their initial response might seem firm and unwavering, they do have the capacity to grow and adapt when pushed outside of their comfort zone. And the main reason why ISTJs don't take initiative when it comes to trying new things is that it takes them out of their comfort zone. So they're going to do the things they're interested in, but they're not going to initiate where their partner might want them to go, right? Or they might do together, or they might not want to do things together, much to their partner's frustration. They can plan and activate for themselves, launch a new hobby, pursue a new interest, but they aren't developed enough. And this is really important to understand about them. They are not developed enough to do it for the we or to do it for the relationship. For example, a stabilizer might think, well, I'm bored. I'm going to go for a long bike ride today. And their inability to identify social and relationship needs would mean that they're not going to stop and go, we haven't gone out with friends for over a month. I think I'll make a dinner date with one of our couple friends. That might not even ever come into their consciousness, right? So they end up leaving the planning of the social side of their relationship to their partner, which again can lead to feelings of resentment and frustration. So here's the tip, knowing that this is a challenge for your ISTJ partner. Introduce change. Don't impose it. This is so important. Despite what you might enjoy yourself, and if you have a really high tolerance and appetite for change, not everyone likes to change, and that is absolutely true when it comes to the ISTJ, the stabilizer, right? To be most effective in introducing new ideas or change, do it slowly in small increments. We talk about planting the seeds, nurturing the seeds along, and because again, that allows them to warm up to the idea and understand and accept that change actually destabilizes them and it thwarts that need, that predominant innate need that they have for security, which is so fundamental for them. They like what is familiar, and change, just bottom line, it creates anxiety for them because of the uncertainties around the roles and the rules and how am I going to be successful with this. When they begin to catastrophize, which is what ISTJs will do, the second there's something different is in front of them, they'll come up with all the reasons why it's going to fail. Let them know that you are only talking about an idea and nothing has been decided yet. Catastrophizing is the opposite of generating options, right? So get them to play with ideas of how something might work if they were to change. Getting frustrated or giving into their catastrophizing and doubt casting causes you to blame and to resent them, right? And so you just want to stay with it and stay with the idea, play with it, don't go into your catastrophizing. And if you really want something to change, then you have to be prepared to negotiate for what you want and help them to actually move past their fear, right? The second challenge for the ISTJ and the stabilizer is that they are emotionally unavailable. They can be guarded and private individuals, and that makes it really difficult for them to open up to their partner and let them in emotionally. And this can create a lack of intimacy and depth in the relationship. So the ISTJs don't pay a lot of attention to their emotions, as we've talked about, right? And so they have little connection to their own emotional needs. So they should they feel something, they don't always think it's worth the energy to figure out, why am I feeling like this, right? They live disconnected from those emotional experiences. And so they have difficulty when they're asked questions like, what are you feeling, right? As one of our clients said, something will happen and I know it's bothered me and I feel something, but it might be a couple of days before I realize what I felt. And I'm usually too busy to pay attention. And that is so typical of what we see with the ISTJ, right? That task orientation, that duty orientation, that moving in action in the experiential world, again, leaves them disconnected from the emotions and the emotional expression. And the other thing to understand, especially if you are a high emotionally expressive individual, if your relationship style is much more emotionally expressive, it's actually perceived as a threat by the ISTJ because they find emotions to be unpredictable, unnecessary, and anxiety producing, right? They prefer everyone to interact in a much more logical, pragmatic fashion without any of that messy emotions that can create so much distress for them. So you think about them as a parent, as a father or a mother of a child going through their teen years, right? Which can be emotionally messy and expressive. Or even if you're just in a relationship and you're more wired for that emotional expression, and just the amount of distress it causes for them internally. They also look at emotions as problems to be solved. And that probably doesn't come as a surprise to you if you're in a relationship with an ISTJ. They don't know how to be useful to their partner, which is a priority for them if their partner is upset, but nothing is broken that needs fixing, right? So it's like they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do, what role to play, how do I make this work? And when the ISTJ doesn't know what to do, they withdraw into that inner cave that I talked about earlier, taking themselves out of harm's way. So emotional outbursts, open conflict, it just makes them feel unsafe. And while they might stand and listen, they emotionally disappear until their partner runs out of steam, right? You'll see them get really still in like we said, a little bit like the deer in the headlights kind of look to it, and just not actively engaged in the conversation until whoever's in that emotional outburst first winds themselves down. They will not engage, and it doesn't matter how much you escalate, they're not going to escalate to match or to mirror you at all. So how do you navigate this one? Well, it's really important to remember that everybody has their own unique emotional and personality type, and everyone needs to be accepted for who they are. So shaming your ISTJ partner for not being emotionally available can really backfire on you, and it does nothing to resolve their developmental issue. So resist the temptation to criticize their lack of emotional expression, even when they may appear cold, unemotional, distant, or label them. We see this all the time, labeling them as heartless or insensitive or uncaring because of that tendency they have to prioritize logic over emotions. And don't go into the escalation of it, because that's not going to get you to the resolution of whatever the issue is. Don't say anything that makes them feel ashamed. Because if they're told that they're lacking in some way because they're not as emotionally available as them, again, you just get that shutdown and withdrawal. Expecting them to be more like you just leads to them spending more time in that inner cave, which again is counter, in terms of that aim of bringing them into the relationship more. It's an undeveloped, vulnerable area where you need to actually take care of them, understand this about them, and work with them from that perspective. Now, challenge number 3, we have to go after this when they withdraw into their cave, right? It's often like pulling teeth, trying to get an ISTJ to reveal anything about themselves, whatever they're feeling. Really in their minds, it doesn't matter, right? So what they're doing in the moment is what is most important. And if you ask, what are you doing? They'll recite a really precise list or say, I'm busy, which really doesn't mean, really all that means is I don't have time to talk about it because I'm so busy doing, right? And, they're not really looking at their own intrinsic motivations or going below the surface to get to know themselves better and why they do that. Not curious about why they do what they do. And they don't like others, or they don't like it when others ask them the whys about their motivation to not do something or to do something. They really do find those kinds of questions quite intrusive. And they don't realize that others might feel rejected or devalued by their curtness and their shutting down of this conversation. And conversely, they don't inquire about the feelings of others, and they can appear really disinterested. And so, fine and good are probably 2 of the most common things they'll say about how they feel. And neither of them are actually felt experiences, right? They're just a judgment. And they don't describe, they don't have that language. They don't go into that articulation of their emotional experience. They judge it, sort it, keeping it really simple. It's good, it's bad, it's right, it's wrong, it's fine, it's not fine, right? And now, whether this is at work or at home, they can really appear to be in a holding pattern, waiting for something to happen or for someone to tell them what to do. They're not always sure what to talk about and are often unable to tolerate even simple personal conversations or conversations where there's brainstorming or problem solving, right? Because it's like they have an on-off switch that's controlled from the outside and not from the inside. And when they're in these situations that make them feel less comfortable, into the inner cave they go. Now, how do you navigate this one? Well, first and foremost, do not get angry or upset with them, because all that does is push the ISTJ much further into that cave where they're going to stay for longer and longer periods of time if they think their partner is angry or upset with them, right? So a rule of thumb when it comes to relationships is, how would I want my partner to behave if I didn't know how to do something? So we have to think about the ISTJ in that way, as they have undeveloped social skills and low emotional intelligence. That is how they come into the relationship with us. And so getting upset with this gap that they have that's natural and hardwired into them really just makes the situation worse. They need to be taught, and we have to think about ourselves as having to teach and to support and have empathy for where their starting position. Patience, compassion, acceptance, all of those are really important ingredients in the relationship with an ISTJ. Getting angry at them or taking their disinterest in your emotions as being about you and not about them, and that personalizing it, it's a personalizing defense, right? And that doesn't help to support the relationship either. If your relationship goal, so think about it this way, if your relationship goal is really to help each other grow and develop, it's only going to be done by applying loving ingredients. So you have to accept the fact that you are much better at interpersonal relationships than your ISTJ partners are. And that doesn't give you license to be condescending or to embarrass them, or for not being empathetic, for not being able to read social cues. And it also doesn't mean you let them off the hook when they're dismissive or they're operating on autopilot. If you want to be listened to, make sure you tell them you're going to talk about something that's really important to you and they need to tune in and not be tuned out. Teach them empathetic things to say and recognize their efforts when they use this new language with you. Want to find out more about the ISTJ? Because I've taken you through kind of the 3 key challenges and the tips. If you're looking to learn more and to understand how to strengthen the relationship that you have with your ISTJ partner, or if you're an ISTJ looking to navigate challenges within your primary relationship or your relationships at work, you can certainly reach out to us. Post your questions here inside the Facebook group or on the LinkedIn video, or email us directly. And again, we just encourage you, if you want more information about your particular relationship style or the relationship style of the individual that you are in a relationship with based on their MBTI or their striving style, check out our website, nowfixyourrelationship.com, where we have access to all kinds of great stuff, and also our YouTube channel. So Dranitsaris-Hilliard, lots of great content there. And we are going to continue these daily conversations throughout the month of February to give you all the tips and insights into each of the relationship styles of the 16 types. Tomorrow, you can join my partner, Anne. She's going to be talking about the ISFJ, so the other stabilizer, with some nuances, because it's the ISFJ versus the ISTJ that we talked about today, and some tips on how to deal with them in relationships and romance. Thank you so much for joining us live or catching us here on the replay. Again, I encourage you, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out, or you can post them inside of our Facebook group, Power Up Your Innate Potential, or happy to hear your comments on LinkedIn or on the YouTube, where you can catch all of the replays. Thanks again for joining us. Till next time.